Wow, I think that's for us to go. We are glad that everybody's here for our Carter committee meeting. We are not going to be here long, if it's up to me. But I'm going to ask, will somebody make a motion to adopt the agenda that Josh sent out to us?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
It's been motion and second that we adopt the agenda. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next, we're going to adopt our minutes that Josh sent out to us.
So moved.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Was motion and second. It was motioned by Commissioner Hamby and seconded by Commissioner Davenport. Any questions? All in favor, let's say aye.
Aye.
Aye from me too.
Aye.
Okay, well, this is the easiest part of me facilitating. I turn it over to Josh. And it's yours.
Commissioner Thornton, good to be here today with the Corridor Policy Committee. Our first item of business is to provide an update on the median plantings master plan. And I know Jeannie and Gavin are both here, as well as Andrew from Central Services. And so I'll hand it off to them for an update.
Well, so at our last meeting, I believe we discussed both the master plan and looking into some GDOT work. You all asked us to continue to move forward with the GDOT installation on Highway 78, the Atlanta Highway area, and also asked us to inquire about the status of plantings in Oconee County and determine how they were doing things that were causing us a good bit of permitting challenges. And so I believe Jeannie has an update on both of those, and then we can talk a little bit about next steps with the master plan.
Okay. As far as GDOT, we have received our first permit for Highway 78 and Atlanta Highway up by the Pepsi plant. But under GDOT guidelines, we can't do anything until between October 15th and March 15th. So I'm working with SPLOST on that. So we've got that permit. I did also spoke with the engineer from GDOT when I was picking the permit up and asked them how they were able to install Mars Hill. They did over 750 trees within the median, both outside and inside. And that was actually county highway, and then it got turned over to GDOT for them to do the widening and taking in the expense of that construction. That is a temporary ownership of it, so they're not as stringent on their restrictions and guidelines. So pretty much they let them do what they want to, because as those trees mature, they'll become Oconee County's problem, not the state's. So all liabilities will fall back on Oconee for that. So it's treated more as a private instead of a state highway. And
I think it was Commissioner Hamby that brought
Correct.
that up.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner, any thoughts?
No, not just yet. Yeah, that makes sense. No, not just yet. I'm just wondering how we. I don't know what I'm wondering just yet, but no. Thank you, Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Allison?
Yeah, I think that if you guys could help me understand this, I think that we have a stricter liability approach too. When it's under our liability, like you're saying, Oconee is going to be accepting whatever might happen after GDOT's done with that road. It sounds to me like they have more lenient how big a caliper tree can be, how close, that sort of thing. Am I reading that wrong? And that we're a little bit stricter on that liability side of things?
Steve, if you want to help me on that part.
Yes, I certainly can. But GDOT has a clear zone but they call it a federal clear zone. And that clear zone does not allow any structures like that within the clear zone. And the medians, it's based upon the speed in the medians. If you put a tree in there, it violates the clear zone. So when it's their roadway, their maintenance, they do not permit it. And if you really look at it holistically, if we put them in there too, we're accepting that same liability when you put a tree in there. So that's kind of a national standard that everybody follows.
But Steve, when it comes to landscape vegetation on locally controlled roads, we do not directly mirror some of the more stringent requirements of Georgia DOT standards. So, for example, there are requirements for how big trees can get, both in diameter and height, on some of those GDOT roads. And in Athens, whether it's Chase Street or in a traffic calming area, we're more comfortable with maybe bigger vegetation as long as it's not blocking those clear zones. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, as long as you don't block the site visibility, and as long as you don't put a structure in there that with somebody to run into it would cause injury to the driver.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of places where they've hit trees and actually flipped the cars upside down.
Because Alice, I can't think of any place that I've been told that I can't or been restricted on any installations that we've done, but I always take into consideration any NASHTO safety regulations and any intersections or roundabout. I have consulted with traffic engineering.
Yeah, and we have the manual uniform traffic control devices adopted, and that includes the clear zones and those type of things. We try to adhere to that as much as we can for site visibility and in case somebody would run into it. There was a case on Baxter where we have a tree in the median where a student hit the tree and actually flipped her car upside down. And she was injured pretty bad. So that's just a caution. It happens. It was the driver's fault, of course. But if we could have possibly had issues with that.
Allison, does that answer your question? Are you good?
Yeah, I just, safety first. I mean, I agree with that, in that respect. And I, got the impression from that explanation that Oconee County maybe wasn't similarly prioritizing that from whatever we saw planting, but yeah, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Well, anything else on this item?
Well, I think it's important to remember that in the last meeting, this committee took action to support some maintenance resources for the corridors master plan, much like they did about this time last year. And then since then, I know that the commission has been participating in that Big Rocks discussion, certainly understands our budget challenges. Thank you. I can't actually access this because it's on my network drive. And so we kind of broke down for you all what the operating impacts were, what the impacts are to the mowing cycle, and so on. And if I recall correctly, the motion from this committee was for item number 2, which was to go ahead and recover ground that was lost through previous beautification plantings and provide the resources to more or less complete what's in the master plan. And so, Josh, is there anything that we need to update on as far as the budgeting process?
Yeah, I would just say that we've shared every step of the way in the budget development process that this was the recommendation of the Corridor Policy Committee, item number 2, and the associated request in the budget that Central Services submitted wasn't in the Big Rocks presentation y'all saw, and Manager Williams brought that up, that we weren't able to find the funding for this at this point. What I would encourage y'all is once the mayor's budget comes out next week, to ask kind of if that's been able to be added on. At this point, I don't think it is a part of it, but we'll find out when the mayor finishes his budget and shares that with the full commission. And so I think this is us just trying to bring this forward as we said we would in full communication, that we don't think it's in there right now. That doesn't mean that it's not something y'all can't bring up as you iron out and finalize the budget over the next couple months.
Any other thoughts? Pat, Commissioner Davenport, you are like the budget person. Do you have any thoughts about if how we could, or will you look into it with staff to give us from a commissioner's point of view how we could try to get this in the budget? I guess Patrick is there somewhere. Well, I'll ask that question later. Yes, Allison.
And what we voted on Tuesday night for downtown, it mentioned due to the changes that were going to happen with the planters, the need in landscape maintenance. Is that in the budget, or do we need to keep? Is that already baked in there?
So SPLOST impacts for Clayton Street. Assistant Manager Edwards, do you know if those were in the are trending in the budget?
I'd have to check on that and get back to y'all. But we can definitely have that question ready once the mayor's budget comes out next week. We can answer that for y'all.
Because if I read it right, it was a part-time, and I didn't know if it was contract, but it seems to me like if that's a part-time contract dollars, wouldn't we maybe be able to have part-time permanent? And anyway, it seems to me like we could be blending that together for landscape full-time maintenance.
Yeah, we've got 4 commissioners on here voted unanimously to have it part of the budget. So we need to find 2 more, and I'm sure we'll find some things to move around to make it happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important. So hopefully 2 other commissioners will as well.
We'll keep an eye on it.
Well, I know that Mike and Patrick are much better at budget stuff, the numbers. I just put it out there. Yeah, so, but yeah, I'm on board too. Okay.
All right. We are ready for the next item, Chair Thornton, if y'all are.
I'm ready.
All right, we're moving on. We're going to have our typical update from Keith and the SPLOST office on Atlanta Highway Corridor User Group, Lexington Highway Corridor User Group, and Prince Ave. You're on mute, Keith.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I do want just a couple of quick updates. As y'all know, we had been taking public comment on the Atlanta Highway and Lexington Highway corridor improvements. Those comment period closed on the 18th, and for Atlanta Highway, we received a total of 858 comments, and for Lexington, 359. Now, I will say the way the survey was done, there's multiple pieces to the survey, so that's not 858 different people responding for Atlanta Highway. I don't have the exact number of people, but we will be able to give that to y'all when we give the full report. But I would say on average, probably people responded to 4 or 5 of the survey. So that's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 to 200 individuals on Atlanta, and probably somewhere around 100 on Lexington, but we'll get you those numbers as we get the comments pulled together. The user groups for both of those are going through all of those comments. It is a lot of them, and they're working on pulling some results out of that in order to bring a recommendation to Mayor and Commission for the prioritization of those projects. Originally, we were intended to do that in the July work session, but I think that work session's been canceled, so we'll be getting on the August work session for that. Prince Avenue User Group, they are coming to the June work session to present a list of proposed projects to Mayor and Commission that they would then want to take out for public comment for prioritization as well. So both groups are moving right along, and I'll try to answer any questions that you might have about them.
Thank you, Keith. Any questions for Keith, commissioners? Staff? Wow. Okay, Keith.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
you.
Keith. We appreciate it. And thanks to the Central Services team for their presentation earlier as well. I just wanted to, I know Brad is on and Bruce will be joining us here, but we're going to hear an update on the U.S. Postal Service mailbox discussion. I'll hand it off to y'all.
And Bruce has joined us. So Bruce, jump in.
Okay. Afternoon, everybody. So following up on some work we presented to you last time we met, we presented 2 corridors at that meeting, results from Grand Ellen Drive and West Hancock Avenue. The committee asked us to look at 2 other roadways, Timothy Road, a section of Timothy Road, the southernmost end of Timothy, and which is kind of a suburban corridor, whereas we've been looking at urban settings with the first round, and then a rural corridor, which was Smoky Road. I believe Commissioner Thornton suggested Smoky be something that we took a hard look at. So we did. And in going out, I know this information was sort of put to the manager's office earlier today, so I don't know if it's had a realistic shot to get in front of you. But I can, okay, Josh.
But we can share it. We can share it after you present it for sure.
Okay. So what we found in looking at the 2 additional corridors, Timothy Road was from Cheatham Drive to Autumnwood Avenue. So it kind of goes across the front of Towns Walk subdivision. Towns Walk's the only section of that portion of Timothy that has sidewalk. And if any of you have spent half a second anywhere in that section along Timothy, you know that the shoulder drops away really quickly. There's not much refuge on that section of Timothy. So what we surveyed were 46 total addresses. There were 34 mailboxes. 12 of those had shared mailboxes, and then there was 1 address that had 2 mailboxes. None of the addresses on that section of Timothy had to cross the street to get their mail done. So that was actually a good thing. Nobody has to navigate the speed of the traffic there, which is posted at 45, but goes much faster than 45 on that southernmost end of Timothy. So from a safety standpoint, what we're really talking about are the folks coming down to their own mailbox, not crossing the travel lanes, and just having a safe spot to stand and get their mail. On the eastern side of that section, Timothy drops away really quickly. So the shoulder's not very deep, and there's a ditch section there that makes it even a little harder to stand there. So there is a safety concern, but nobody's crossing travel lanes. On Smoky Road, and this was the section between Nowhere Road, arching over to Helicon Springs, posted speed of 50 miles an hour. The pavement width is nice and consistent. The right-of-way is consistent. It's relatively flat. The shoulder is much deeper than Timothy. There are no sidewalks anywhere on that road section, but the shoulder is big enough for someone to safely stand and get their mail. In both of these corridors, the mailboxes are facing towards the travel lane, whereas when we surveyed those other urban sections on West Hancock, we actually had boxes that were turned parallel to the travel lane, and that actually helped people get out of the way of cars to get their mail. But on both of these, they're perpendicular like you would normally see. There were 106 total addresses on that section of Smoky that we looked at, 48 total mailboxes. We had 1 mail kiosk that actually served 15 addresses at one time. That was associated with there's a manufactured housing development that's right there. And 27 of the addresses, or about half of the mailboxes we saw, a little over half, those folks have to cross the street to get their mail. So we have a situation out there, and this is something that Commissioner Thornton talked about, I think, when she was campaigning, that she ran into, that it's tough. There's some unsafe circumstances from that regard on Smoky Road. So what we've done is we've taken these results both for all 4 street sections. We've sent it to our local postmaster and the staff there. We have yet to hear anything from the postmaster about options for making adjustments or who would play what role in making those adjustments or even paying for those things. But we keep reaching out to them. So hopefully in short order, we will have an answer that we can pass on to you. But we've got mapping, we've got the raw data that went with what I've just presented. We can share that with you. But that's the summary of what we've done to date.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. Questions, commissioners or staff?
I would like to, Chair Thornton, I would just like to thank you guys for having 4 distinct examples to plot the information about, to share with them, so that they're serious. I got hopefully, combing through it to give some feedback. If and when we get the results and when we learn more about it, I suspect that improving these situations to be safer is going to come out of our community funding. Does the American Rescue Plan qualify? If we could look into if that would qualify for fixing some of these dangerous situations, as well as would they fall under pedestrian improvements for any of our other SPLOST buckets?
I don't know about the American Rescue Plan. I think creatively it's possible, especially since there's a pot of money and recommendation for infrastructure type stuff. I had no idea about SPLOST. Anybody? Josh?
I mean, the one thing it could be is, potentially tied to T-SPLOST projects that you're doing pedestrian work in. But I would think it's something we could look at and get back to you for sure, Commissioner.
Well, and it could be, and with the American Rescue Plan, I want to be pretty straightforward so that the maximum benefit can be happening for the community. And it could be that we are just doing a little background work for a bucket item for T-SPLOST 2, if that moves forward. It could be that we're just doing a little groundwork and homework for that as well, if everything else has already got their buckets, so to speak. But I really do appreciate this. It sounds like we'll just wait for an update when you hear something from Postal Service Atlanta director people. Is that the next spot? Thank you, guys. I really appreciate your homework on that and sharing.
And one thing we'll try to bring back to you is, could this potentially be wrapped into, sidewalk projects we do? Could we, once we hear from U.S. Postal Service, when we're building sidewalk, is this not something that we can incorporate in those projects? And I think that's something that could come from this as well. So we appreciate it, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you all. Okay,
all right.
Moving right along.
Yes, thanks planning staff. And now we're on our last item for today. We're joined by Steve Decker and Lieutenant McIlvaine to talk about safety corridor planning and sharing some updated numbers on traffic fatalities. Hand it off to y'all, Steve.
Yes, sir. And if I may, I would like Lieutenant McIlvaine to go ahead and start with his portion, because what he has to say, I'll be able to warp into. Lieutenant?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me back again. So far, year to date, we've had 9 separate fatal traffic crashes in Athens-Clarke County. Just to put that in some historical context, our 5-year average at this point in time of the year is in between 1 and 5. It averages out to be 3. So we are significantly higher than our historical average. Right now, we're pacing toward a total of 29 fatal traffic crashes for the year. We are trending downward. If you'll recall, back in February at our last meeting, we had, I think, 7 in the first 7 weeks, which was going to put us at an all-time historical high here in Athens-Clarke County. Our annual average is about 11.6. fatal crashes a year. So we're trending downwards. I'm hoping that that trend continues, and we're able to better keep the highways inside Athens-Clarke County safe. With regards to general traffic crashes, compared to this point in time last year, we are 15% higher than last year. However, comparing things to 2020 is a bit difficult because of the pandemic climate and the fact that there was a lot less vehicles on the road, and citizens that were involved in crashes oftentimes just exchanged information amongst themselves and didn't request a police report. So in my opinion, it's better to compare where we are with general traffic crashes to the 2019 stats, in which case we're 18.4% lower than 2019. If anybody has any questions about traffic crashes, I'll be happy to answer them.
No, I'm good. Well, I will say, I think you gave us a map. I think we saw a map at one of our meetings. When you're talking about, were they in any specific areas that it seemed more of? I can't remember what we looked at before.
I did not provide a map at our last meeting. Perhaps Steve might be able to provide some more information on that. However, I can answer the second part of your question, Commissioner. Our fatal traffic crashes generally don't happen in our highest traffic crash density areas, which is Lexington Road, Broad Street, Atlanta Highway, Jefferson Road, Prince Avenue, the major thoroughfares that go through the county. Most of our fatal crashes happen on back roads or side streets and things of that nature. So when as an enforcement aspect from the police department, when we're trying to reduce roadway crashes, we obviously will do traffic enforcement in the highest density areas. It's very hard to predict where fatal crashes will happen, because more often than not, they're related to some sort of impairment, either by drugs or alcohol. And when people try to get home when they're impaired, they generally try to stay off the main roadways. I hope I explained that well.
No, that makes sense. Anybody else? Well, I guess you're up, Steve.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Lieutenant. Appreciate it. And having followed up what he said about the fatalities makes a lot of sense. However, we've had several on Tallahassee. At the last meeting, we talked about the fatalities had and the high crashes that we've had on Tallahassee Road. And I put a plan together to address that. As I put that plan together, it kind of fell into what I've been talking about since I came back to work, is safety corridors. And I've done even more research and come to find out that safety corridor tool is the tool that you use to address Division 0 that we have adopted in Athens and the state of Georgia. And I'll come back to Tallahassee in a second, but we have put together part of this work already, and I'll go through that in a second. But I had a meeting with the assistant state traffic engineer, who he is probably the wisest person I've ever worked with, and the most common sense when it comes to traffic crashes and traffic capacity and things to do to address that. Vision 0 is something he's working on, and when I talked about safety corridors, I got his attention. And so he's behind us. In fact, we used a roadway safety audit team in this, and he has given us a person who is one of his assistants to be on our team. So having said all that, when I put the plan together, we were going to collect all of the traffic data, which we've done, speed data, volume data, et cetera, and the crashes. We've assembled that, and it looks like an encyclopedia. It's so thick. But we're going to focus on injury crashes. The next phase, and it's taken us a little while to pull this all together, is the roadway safety audit team to take a look at this roadway. And they've done some preliminary work. They've gone out, found, because we can't walk it like we normally do, because there's no sidewalk. So we've got locations where we're going to go bus out, stop, and kind of look at areas, drive slowly through some areas. This is going to take a little bit of time. But before we do that, we're going to meet and go over the crashes and the whole project holistically so we can have a plan when we get out there, okay? We have a really good group put together, a lot of Athens-Clarke County staff, the police department, of course, and we brought people from different disciplines, not just engineers, just like we normally do. But this is going to be a major project when we get out and do this. The next step that I'm working on with Josh and I've been working with Jeff Montgomery and with ACPD about doing the educational part. I've been working on that, and we're going to continue to work on that. I'm trying to set up a meeting now so we can develop that. After the work that the roadway safety audit team gets done and gives us these things that they've identified, we will come back, of course, to Mayor and Commission. But in that same meeting, we'll be working with ACPD, and we're presenting them the traffic data that we collected that has the location of all the crashes, the type of crashes, which he will help us identify. But we're also going to give him the speed data for every roadway that shows the time of day and day of week with the highest speeding over 10 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, so they can do selective enforcement. That is going to be a big key with that. We'll incorporate with that the educational material that we'll be able to hand out. Hope to get a PSA made where we can publicize that as well. That's kind of where we are at this point. The second portion of this, which I'll come back to the Mayor and Commission about, is that what the roadway safety audit team identifies. The simple things like striping and those type of things, GDOT actually said they'd help pay for that. And they may even help pay for some of our other projects because it's safety related. So that's kind of where we are with this. What I would like to do, and we haven't officially done this yet, is you can't really just run out and do 3 or 4 safety corridors at one time. We have to learn how to do this to make it more efficient. And so we've selected Tallahassee, because we've got a lot of work done, as our first safety corridor to learn how to do this so we can be more efficient on the others. I know there's others that we need to do, but this has a lot of crashes. This has the highest fatalities right now. And so this is where we should focus, I believe. And that's kind of where we are. And Stephen Bailey or Tim Griffin may want to add something to that.
Steve, all I would add is that, going forward, of course, we hate to do these reactively, right? Reacting to a fatality is never the way you want to do it, but sometimes you absolutely have to. In the future, what Commissioner Thornton had mentioned was a map that we had shown of crash data. It's a crash data heat map from the last 5 years worth of crashes in ACC. And what we can do with that is to be more proactive in the future, identifying some of these corridors. Once we have a feel for how to do this with Tallahassee, we can identify some of the higher crash corridors that we can apply the same type of techniques before we see fatalities there.
When you talk, Steve, when you talk about the education piece, I'm assuming you're talking about educating. Who are you talking about educating? Maybe I better ask.
Well, other agencies that I've spoken with have materials that they hand out. For example, they catch someone for speeding who's in excess of 10 miles over the speed limit. When they stop them, aside from the citation or the warning, whatever they get, there could be a brochure that they hand them and go over that and explain why they're being stopped, why this is important, what happens when you're exceeding the speed limit and you have a crash. Because the faster you're driving, the higher possibility of an injury or severe injury. So that kind of material is one. We also need to put PSAs out there that let people know that we have this safety corridor. And the reason we're doing this safety corridor is to reduce crashes and reduce injuries. Those are the kind of safety materials that everybody who does this uses. I'm in meetings now with ACPD PIOs. We're having a meeting coming up. We're going to outline what we can do that will not give us like we're being hard on everybody, giving citations. We're actually trying to reduce injuries. One thing that I read one just the other day was part of their PSAs that they put out in their flyers says reduce crashes reduces what you pay for insurance. over a period of time, if you reduce the crashes in a region, your car insurance can go down. And right now, we have very, very high rates. And I'll tell you a little true story. I don't know if you know this or not, but when you turn 65 in the state of Georgia, your insurance doubles. I don't know if you knew that or not. I turned 65. I'm a traffic engineer of 40 years. No citations, no crashes, and my insurance doubled. It's in the state of Georgia because we have that thing. I think Athens-Clarke County could be the leader in the state of Georgia and work towards reducing that, because that's a financial impact aside from the crash. Let me get off my soapbox, but
no, you can stay on your soapbox because I was going to ask another question. Well, two, right in the same vein. You said that y'all are going to continue to work on this education component. Do you have any idea when there will be even a draft of something that you know? I would like to think that I will not be chair by the time we get a sample of something. Is there any timeline of something very simple that can that we can kind of test drive?
well, we're meeting next week, and I'm hoping within the next 30 days to have something. There are a lot of examples that we can use, but I want to work closely with the police department because they're one of the key players in this. And whatever we do, I want to make sure we did this. Are you all familiar with No Kidding, Pay Attention in School Zone? The one we did several years back? Some commissioners may be. We did a campaign where we had enforcement and education and engineering that worked in all of our school zones. And the first 2 years, we were able to reduce the number of people speeding in those school zones by over 30%. We went into the schools. I personally went into the schools at the PTO meetings, handed out flyers. We even had pencils and scratch pads and everything that we gave to the children to take home to their parents. Was very, very positive. And our PSA even got a national award that was awarded to us and the commission. So we have history of doing this, positive history. And that's why I know this would work. We have a great team concept that once we get together, we do accomplish things.
Okay.
Chair, I have a question if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm sorry. Where you at, Mike? Okay, go.
Yeah. So Steve, I'm curious about Timothy Road. I know, of course, I'm always asking about it, but we lowered the speed limit over there, but not much has been done to do something to help with that. So at what point can the residents along Timothy Road feel a little bit safer about driving down Timothy Road?
Well, sir, I have to be 100% honest with you. We don't have a radar permit.
Well, I know that. That was the whole point of it. That we're able to do. We spent a whole meeting talking about Timothy Road and some things you were going to do on Timothy Road, but I haven't seen it happen yet.
And I apologize. I don't know what I was going to do other than that they've got the radar speed signs out there now, but they cannot do any. Law enforcement can't really do any enforcement because they can't write citations.
Well, I know that, but I'm talking about making sure people are aware of the speed. You were just talking about educational opportunities, and I don't hear you talking about that along roads like Timothy Road. I know at one point you were going to, I think Tim had mentioned to me, you were going to paint the speed limit in the green thermoplasts on the street to make people aware of things. I mean, I think it's awareness issue that doesn't require a radar issue. So, what is anything going to happen on that?
And I'd have to ask Tim if he's planning to do anything on that. Tim?
Yes, we had those. We do have those planned. We do not have the material to do it with. Throughout the COVID epidemic, we've had issues getting thermoplastic. But yes, Commissioner, that is on the list to do. And we've also discussed doing those on Tallahassee Road as well, but we want to wait and see what the road safety audit team determines before we try to plant suggestions in their mind. But yes, hopefully hopefully by the summertime, we can actually get some of those speed limits on Timothy Road for you.
Okay.
Josh, just for the, thank you, Tim. Just so we can stay on track, the things that, can we keep a running record of what we're requesting? I mean, because some stuff just takes longer, and we lose it, and nothing gets done. But the education piece, the suggestions, or the concern that Mike is raising, can we just create a list and so we can be reminded or redirected, and these items don't get lost? Because I know staff is working really hard, and things like, I understand the logic of Tallahassee, for example. I understand, you want to get something, work it out so you can replicate it or change it. So I totally get that. So I'm a real stickler for outcomes, and not for things to drag on forever and a day. I just would like for us to see if we can start making a to-do list. Because my next question is going to be to Steve, for example. I know we talked about moving the speed sign off of Smoky Road to Nowhere Road, or vice versa, whatever it was, and I don't think it was ever done. So I mean, it was just that we were just going to move the speed thingamajigger, but I don't think it was done, not according to the residents that I talked to. So if that is that a problem that we just either can't do it or forgot to do it, or can we still do it? That's you, Steve.
Yeah, I was trying to come up with an answer because I'm not really sure. And I will go back to one thing about the safety things. The materials that I want to create, that I believe we should create, not me, should be generic enough that it can be used for all of the safety corridors. If we make it roadway specific, then we're going to have to do that for every roadway. So we need to make it as generic as possible so that we can use it on any roadway, if that'll be helpful. And this microphone or the speaker that we have in this room, I'm sorry, or I can't use my laptop. It's real difficult to hear, and I hate to ask you to repeat a little bit of that, but I could not hear it.
One of the things we talked about is the speed, the blinking speed thing. We were going to move it off of Nowhere Road because it was on Nowhere Road, and we were going to move it somewhere on Smoky Road, and I don't think that happened.
I know what you're referring to. We have a set, and I'll we still do. We have a set of those road radar speed signs that we move around.
Yeah.
There's one out there on Nowhere Road that we put in because it ties in with that roadway that is blocked. You can't see it. It's a hidden driveway or basic access. It's where that has the sign that tells you somebody's coming. It's in that because we wanted to try to bring that.
Oh, so it is out. So it is out there now.
Yeah, that one's been there for a long time, but we have another set. And so, Tim, you can let us know where that's at, please.
The other set we have actually put out in the field, and we do those on a rotating 90-day basis. If we'd be glad to the next 90 days. Well, I tell you what, we have some obligated, I think, for the next 90 days ahead of this. But after that, we could move them out there if you'd like.
Yes, that's what I would like.
Can you send me an email about the particular location where you'd like those?
Yes. Yes,
That
sir.
would be perfect, Commissioner. Thank you. We'd be happy to do that. And I'll look at the schedule and I'll send you an email regarding the exact time when they'll be put out there, so you'll know. You can let your constituents know that.
Okay. Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
I think just in response to your question, Commissioner Thornton, we can provide at our next meeting maybe a timeline on how long we think it'll take to learn from Tallahassee, and then about when we might be able to have y'all share where you think the next safety corridors should go. So we can kind of fill in terms of the expected time for the pilot, and then we can then back into kind of the steps needed to then begin identifying, if it does work, where we would want to do it next. And I think that's what we heard today, and we can think about that and work on that. I think the other piece you mentioned about things we're working on, I think with road studies and others, each of y'all, each commissioner has a list of roads they're looking at on their own. And so I just wanted to clarify what you're saying, Commissioner Thornton, is specific to the Corridor Policy Committee, not the roads that you've asked outside of this for TPW to look at, right?
That's right. Exactly.
Okay.
And I'm glad you said that, because I think people think that we're getting off topic, but yeah, that's exactly right. And these were things, and again, these are things that we had talked about, and I was trying to make sure we had the follow up. Thank you, though. But I really appreciate this. Gives me a better idea of the concerns that I had. I thank Tim and Steve.
And I'll work on a rolling list and try to have that for y'all, and we can follow up on that too.
Okay. Any other thoughts, commissioners? Josh, you gonna close us out and
I have one thought.
Okay, sir.
I think Steve, you had me at free from GDOT, so I'm very excited about that.
Thank you.
He did what?
This engineer that we're working with is amazing. He has $30 million for safety projects.
Oh.
And we had a meeting with Stephen Bailey, Tim Griffith, and myself with him, and he sees us as being the leader in the state of Georgia for safety. And I worked with this gentleman for 11 years when I was traffic engineer. He's brilliant, common sense, and he wants to work with us. So we will see great things happen from this gentleman.
I have a quick question, Ovita, if you don't mind. So
where's that?
Right over here. So this safety corridor pilot thing on Tallahassee, why is it that we can't do it on a pilot on a few other roads as well?
It is a major project. It involves a lot of staff, and we've never done one. So we're making mistakes as we go through and fixing it.
Is the crash record the reason why you picked Tallahassee? How did that one get chosen?
Well, that one started because we had a lot of fatalities, and y'all asked for what we're going to do. I came up with a plan, and since I put that plan together, it mimicked a safety corridor. So this is a good pilot to learn.
But is Tallahassee? I'm wondering why Tallahassee. Is it because of the crash records or the fatalities? Has there been fatalities? Have there been more fatalities on some other streets that?
And I believe we had 3 in a row on Tallahassee. Plus, we have numerous crashes. And since we was asked to do something about it, we put a plan together. And ironically, the plan fell into what you would do for a safety corridor, and it was a good place to begin.
Right. Well, I just want to reiterate, I've been asking for something on Timothy Road for a long time now too, Steve. So, all right, look forward to that.
Well, we want Steve, I think, I'm not going to do it today, so we'll stay focused, but maybe there is a conversation that you and Commissioner Hamby can have about Timothy and Tallahassee, because none of these seem to be short plans. So maybe there is something. There needs to be a conversation. So when you reach out to Commissioner Hamby, I would appreciate it, and let's get some clarity there. Or maybe a different plan, or maybe a duplicate plan. I don't know. But we want to make sure all of our areas are taken care of, especially when we've been advocating for them. Because I'm going to completely advocate for my areas. Definitely. That's going to happen. Okay? All right, Josh.
That is all we have today, Commissioner. We appreciate it, and thanks to staff for the presentations and answering the questions. This was a good discussion today. Thanks.
Staff, yeah, I appreciate staff also. Josh, I hope, I assume you already got some marching orders for our next meeting based on this meeting.
I do, and I think we're scheduled for the third Thursdays now, and
Okay.
so we'll make sure I get you all a save the date here shortly, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody, staff, commission. Thank y'all.
Chair Thornton, can we make sure we keep hearing about that GDOT money? Can we keep getting updates on that?
Is that on your rolling thing there?
Yeah, I wrote it down. $30 million from GDOT. That's what I wrote down. That's top of the list.
We need a motion to adjourn, or can we just say goodbye?
So moved. Goodbye.
Bye.